I think the swamp is coming for Joe. This is a big deal, folks. Yeah, he's still being protected. He still has a lot of allies, the media, but he's vulnerable here. He is, as lawyers would say, exposed. There's exposure for Joe Biden with these classified documents found at that office he maintained for several years in Washington, D.C. Now, first of all, a quick review. It was a no-show job provided by the University of Pennsylvania, the Biden Penn Center for Global Diplomacy Engagement, blah, 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 blah. No classes taught. Joe shows up once in a blue moon and gets paid $900,000 over 2 years. That's a lot of money, isn't it? Now, that office, I had it all the way until, well, November. Just before the election, lawyers working for Joe Biden, well, I'd like to know more about that, found 10 classified documents just before the election related to Ukraine, Iran, and the United Kingdom. And you see that? Yeah, Ukraine. Hasn't that country been in the news a lot? Didn't Hunter Biden work there for $87,000 a month? And these are the documents that Joe Biden apparently chose to hold on to. And Joe himself has extensive experience in Ukraine. Remember going all the way over there to meet with that president and insist, of all the countries in the world, I always wanted to know the answer to this question. How many countries did Joe Biden go and insist that their prosecutor be fired? Huh? Did he do that in Argentina? I don't think so. It was one country, Ukraine, where Hunter had a job. And Joe being Joe, he bragged about it.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Tough guy, tough talk. That's also known as a quid pro quo, and it was very, very weird. So where are we? Ukraine, documents in Joe Biden's office. That's Joe has entanglements with countries all over the world. So does Hunter, especially Hunter. And we believe Joe may have been the beneficiary of all of Hunter's shady business dealings. And they were shady. All right, now let's get to the Joe Biden part of this equation and his brief academic career. The Biden Center for Diplomacy and whatever, right? Nice, sweet office that looks like it has less security than a Marriott Hotel Conference Center, right? The business center at the bottom of the hotel. It's at 101 Constitution Avenue, Washington, D.C. Guess what else is in that building? We looked it up, and lots of people have businesses there. There's a steakhouse. There's another cafe. There are 2 restaurants, actually. You can rent a car there. There's a lot going on in this building where Joe Biden apparently put classified documents. And when he got there, 2017, 2018, he was not the vice president of the United States. He was an ex-vice president of the United States. That'll be important in a moment. A steakhouse, everybody. A steakhouse. That was there. Oh, I checked out the parking situation, right? They're pretty serious about parking. There's a sign that says you can't park here if you don't work here. Okay, no security guard, nothing like that. Compare that to Mar-a-Lago, anyone? Everything you see is owned by Donald Trump. Members only. And it's protected by the Secret Service still. I'd say that's pretty secure. Remember when the fake news freaked out about the secret documents that Donald Trump was said to have had?
Then there is Mar-a-Lago itself, right? The more we learn about the porous nature of the beach club, it sounds like a lot of people were coming in and out of Mar-a-Lago.
You can't just have them lying around in boxes at Mar-a-Lago where different people can just walk in and read those documents. So this is a very serious matter.
You don't have to make too many jumps to realize how many people at Mar-a-Lago and the type of people at Mar-a-Lago who could have potentially had access to these documents. The place is filled with foreign nationals. It's filled with the type of grifters who have always flocked to Donald Trump and have always tried to get close to him because they see opportunities.
Hey, shut up. I've been to Mar-a-Lago. It's not like that at all. All right. You know, Mar-a-Lago is members only. Can I see the restaurant at Joe Biden's office? Look at that little kid taking pictures. Look at all those people there. I'm saying that Mar-a-Lago, in comparison, is a fortress compared to where Joe Biden had these documents. It's an absolute fortress compared to this arrangement. And Joe Biden showed up there again as an ex-vice president of the United States. He had no entitlement to any classified material. And what's his excuse for all of this?
The news at home, can you explain how classified documents ended up in one of your offices? And should the public have been notified sooner?
Well, let me get rid of the easy one first. People know I take classified documents and classified information seriously. When my lawyers were clearing out my office at the University of Pennsylvania, they set up an office for me, secure office in the Capitol. The 4 years after being vice president, I was a professor at Penn. They found some documents in a box in a locked cabinet, or at least a closet. And as soon as they did, they realized there were several classified documents in that box. And they did what they should have done. They immediately called the archives, turned them over to the archives, and I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there were any government records that were taken there to that office. But I don't know what's in the documents. My lawyers have not suggested I ask what documents they were. I've turned over the boxes. They've turned over the boxes to the archives, and we're cooperating fully with the review, and which I hope will be finished soon, and there'll be more detail at that time.
Wow, lawyers all over the place, lawyers cooperating fully. If he's moving out of his office, doesn't he have like 70 grandkids? Why would you need lawyers to do this if it's not sensitive information? He knew it was sensitive information, perhaps. How did it get there? He was not vice president when he made this arrangement with the with the University of Pennsylvania. Mar-a-Lago, again, in comparison, a fortress. And oh, by the way, the swamp, what they did to Donald Trump and what they're doing to Donald Trump over this. Let's go back to January 20th, 2021. This is what happened. These boxes are leaving the White House. I kind of expect somebody who's moving to have material like this when they're moving. Some swamp guy at the National Archives sees this. Gets this, he sees it on TV and he says, I can remember watching the Trumps leaving the White House and saying to myself, what the hell's in that box? Next, this is the National Archive chief. That began a whole process of trying to determine whether any records had not been turned over to the archives. They called the FBI because he was moving out. Now, here's something that I think totally exonerates Donald Trump on this issue. Ready? When he left the White House, Donald Trump, on Inauguration Day 2021, he was the president of the United States at that moment, 8:13 in the morning. A couple of hours later, we all know he did not go to the inauguration. He arrives at Palm Beach Airport, West Palm Beach, at 11 in the morning. He is still president of the United States. A short ride over to Mar-a-Lago. It's about 5 minutes away. 11:32. He met with some folks at the airport. He is still president of the United States. When those documents are brought to Mar-a-Lago, he is the sitting president of the United States. Maybe only minutes to go, but any classified document in the government, if he wanted to look at them all the way up until 12 noon, he had the right. And he had the right to access them. Joe Biden was sworn in as president of the United States. Unconstitutionally, by the way. He jumped the gun by 13 minutes. And this is important. You got to remember this. President Trump was president when he got to Mar-a-Lago with those documents, we believe. In 2018, when Joe Biden had access to the Biden Center at the University of Pennsylvania, it's 2018. Joe has been an ex-vice president for over a year. He had no access. You know, there's a world of difference between being an ex-president and an ex-vice president. When you're an ex-vice president, you're basically just a guy who had a cool job and maybe you can go on a book tour. Take a look at this from Bob Woodward's Peril. When Biden showed up at an event, he was dropped by a single publishing representative. No security, no aides. That was in 2018. And it drove him crazy. He wanted those perks back. I think it's a big reason why he ran for president. Meanwhile, he also had no authority to declassify anything. Trump, as president of the United States, in charge of the national defense establishment, had the authority to declassify anything, any piece of paper in the government. I do believe, and we've spoken to Kash Patel about this, just by looking at the documents and declassifying, he had the authority. Joe Biden, on the other hand, he was the president of the Senate. That's all the vice president gets to do. And of course, they never trusted Joe Biden when he was vice president. Not one bit. And I bet people in the know, like Obama, trust him even less now that he was apparently squirreling documents about Iran, the UK, and Ukraine in some office downtown on top of a restaurant. All right, we'll be back in a moment. Do you remember Harry Dunn, the crybaby cop from January 6th? This guy is dangerous. This man right here represents fascism, and it's a threat to all of us. We'll be right back.